With regard to today's speaker, graduates, 30 years ago, today's guest speaker was one of you, sitting where you are today. A native of nearby Killen, Jonathan Pettus graduated from UNA with degrees in secondary education and math and computer science and history. He taught math and computer programming and coached basketball at Coffee High School for a couple of years before his career shifted more into information technology, and this eventually led him to join NASA's Marshall Space Flight Center in Huntsville in 1991. You can see in your program the array of growing responsibilities there that eventually led to his appointment as Chief Information Officer of NASA in Washington, D.C. From D.C., he eventually found his way back to Alabama, and he currently serves as Associate Director of the Marshall Space Flight Center. Over the years, Mr. Pettus has been involved with the International Space Station, the Space Shuttle program, the new Space Launch System, and NASA's operations in Russia. Mr. Pettus has received numerous commendations from NASA for success in his field, as well as the federal government's Meritorious Presidential Rank Award in 2008 and the Distinguished Presidential Rank Award in 2010. Mr. Pettus, his wife Angela, and their family now reside in Athens, and we're delighted that he could return to his alma mater to speak with you today. Please join me in giving a warm lion welcome to Mr. Jonathan Pettus.
Thank you, President Kitts. Wow, what an honor to be here. President Kitts, faculty, graduates, and guests, it's such an honor, as I said, to be asked to come back here to my alma mater and to share this great day with you. To the graduates, it's been almost exactly 30 years to this day that I sat where you sat. I remember the pride of knowing I'd achieved an important milestone, the joy of celebrating that milestone with the friends that I'd made in school here over my time at the university, and honestly, a mix of excitement, hope, and fear about what the future might hold. So you young people, you have no idea what a scary world it was back in 1987. I was graduating into a world of economic uncertainty, a country deeply divided politically over things like tax cuts, whether we had a good president or a bad president. We lived with the threat of a nuclear attack from another country, the threat of terrorist attacks, and new technologies like the personal computer were having a major disruptive effect on business and jobs. Sound familiar? So having been in your shoes, I want to try and share some thoughts in the next few minutes that at least might ease some of the angst that some of you may be feeling. When I first received the invitation to do this from President Kitts, I was so honored and excited to be asked, but I did wonder, what had I done to deserve such an honor? It first occurred to me that it had to be my illustrious academic achievements while I was here at the university. In just a few moments, as is tradition, the university will recognize that graduating senior with the highest GPA in their class as the recipient of the coveted Keller Key. I'm proud to tell you that on my graduation 30 years ago, I took home the Keller Key. You can clap. Thank you. Now, there is one minor detail that I left out. You see, I graduated with my then fiance and now my wife of 30 years, Angela, and she had the highest GPA, and she won the Keller Key. But we did ride together, and I did take her home. So technically, I took home the Keller Key. However, I do believe I deserve some credit for the intelligence to marry someone way smarter than me. And students, that's your first life tip. Marry up. By the way, it's nice to finally be at a UNA graduation and get some attention. I actually had my picture made with President Kitts this morning. On my big day 30 years ago, just after the ceremony, Angela and I were down front, and the university photographer said, "Sir, I don't know who you are, but would you move out of the way so we could get a picture of the Keller Key winner with the president?" Which I kind of understood, but then my mom and dad said, "Jonathan, would you mind getting out of the way so we could get a picture of Angela with her Keller Key?" Today, as we were driving over this morning, I asked Angela, I said, in your wildest dreams 30 years ago, could you have ever imagined that I'd be coming back here today and doing the commencement address? And Angela said, Jonathan, I hate to break it to you, but you're not in my wildest dreams. She has a way of keeping me humble. So I must conclude, I probably wasn't asked here because of my academic accomplishments, but I think I know why I'm here. This honor has fallen on me because of the great organization and team that I've been a part of. I am so blessed to be part of the NASA team, an organization with such a lofty and incredible mission. I get to work with people who do amazing things. People at Marshall built and tested the Saturn V rocket that took us to the moon. They built the propulsion systems that powered the space shuttle for 135 launches over a 30-year period. And today I work with people who built the International Space Station that's flying above us right now, 250 miles overhead, traveling at 17,000 miles an hour, so fast that it orbits the Earth every 92 minutes. We have 6 crew members there today from the United States, Italy, and Russia. They're living and working up there right now. And the space station has been occupied continuously for 17 years. So there'll be students graduating this spring from high school that their whole life someone's been living and working in space. I get to work with people who built and still manage the Hubble Space Telescope that enables us to peer deep into the heart of the universe and see it as it was 13 billion years ago. I work with people who manage the New Horizons mission, where we built and launched a spacecraft that traveled 3 billion miles, that's 3 billion miles over a 9-year period, to the planet Pluto. And yes, when I was in school at UNA, that was a planet. Pluto was a planet, so I still call it a planet. And that night of the Pluto flyby, it flew within 7,000 miles of the surface of the planet, and it beamed back some magnificent pictures. You may remember it from a couple of years ago. And I'll admit, sometimes I try to impress I'm like most guys, I try to impress my family and my wife at times about the work that I do. So on that night, I told Angela, I said, isn't it amazing that we built a data network that can enable a spacecraft that's 3 billion miles away to send images back to this planet? And she said, Jonathan, that's really good. So if you're so smart, how about seeing if you can get that Wi-Fi router in our living room to reach upstairs, like I've been asking you? And now we're working on the next great American rocket, one that will put the moon, Mars, and other deep space worlds within the reach of humankind. It's called the Space Launch System, or SLS, and it will be the most powerful rocket ever created. When fully assembled on the launch pad, SLS will stand over 325 feet tall and be capable of generating 8.8 million pounds of thrust at liftoff. That's the equivalent of 160,000 Corvette engines. You want to be down at the Cape when that lifts off. We're just finishing manufacturing all the major flight hardware for its first mission and now testing the components to ensure the rocket's ready to launch actually 2 years from this month in 2019. It will give the United States a capability to take humans deeper in space than we've ever been, give us the ability to have a transportation platform to go back to the moon, and hopefully a gateway in the future to take us on to Mars. So I'm here not really because of what I've done or achieved, but because I'm part of NASA, part of a team that has achieved so much through the years and continues to dream about what might be possible in the future. So given that, what can I share with you that might be of some benefit as you head out into your future? Consider that new rocket, the Space Launch System we're building. What's the purpose of a rocket, and what does it take for it to achieve its mission? A rocket's purpose is to overcome the force of gravity and lift its payload, including human beings, beyond Earth's atmosphere and toward a destination in space. Doesn't that kind of fit with where you students are right now? You're all like rockets sitting on the launch pad. You have yet untested potential to go to places that you can't even imagine. But what will it take for you to get there? It might be helpful to think about what it takes for a rocket to achieve mission success. First, you need a launching pad that provides you a stable starting point. I believe that whether you've lived a charmed life up to this point or overcome very difficult circumstances to get here, you've all made it here to graduation day. I have so much respect for this university and what it meant to me. I really didn't appreciate how much I learned and how I grew while I was here, but now I can see it. For me, it was a place where professors actually knew my name, like Dr. Patricia Roden, Dr. Eddie Joe Bracken. They still know my name today. It was a place that challenged me, where I could learn and learned how to study and about how to work, and that there were consequences when I didn't. I remember paying a required visit to my counselor midway through the first semester of my sophomore year. I was expecting to get congratulated for a solid low B average. He looked at my grades and my ACT score and he said, "Mr. Pettus, it appears to me that you're underachieving." He asked, "Are you okay with not doing your best? It's not the numeric score or your grades that matter, but it's a question of, are you okay with mediocrity?" Just something for you to think about. That feedback was short and tough, but it had a lasting impact on me. I don't think I made another B the rest of my college career, but that really wasn't what was important. What was important was learning that it was my decision whether to accept mediocrity or work toward excellence. And as I walk around campus today and see how it's grown and improved, and I see these students, I can see that this place is still about excellence. I know that this university has provided you with an opportunity to learn in the classroom and mature as a person through your experiences here. You should have confidence as you graduate today that you are prepared and ready for launch. UNA has provided you with a great launching pad. The second thing that a rocket needs is fuel. Two of the most important pieces of that new rocket we're building are the liquid hydrogen and liquid oxygen fuel tanks. They're huge, and they provide the fuel necessary to lift a 5.5 million pound rocket off the Earth and into space. You too will need fuel for your journey. It's going to come from people around you that you learn from, that give you energy, encouragement, love, and support to help you along the way. Look around here. I bet some of your best sources of fuel are here to see you today. Don't take them for granted. One example of someone who helped me fuel my tank was a man named Harlan Hill. Some of you may have heard of him. He graduated from this university when it was Florence State Teachers College. He went on to star for the Chicago Bears and the NFL. He was Rookie of the Year in 1954 and Most Valuable Player in 1955. But I knew him as my principal and coach at Brooks High School. Coach Hill helped fuel my rocket by teaching me that the importance of focusing on what you can control and not obsessing over things you can't. He would constantly remind us that there are two things in life we can control: our attitude and our effort. He said to work on a positive mindset, and it was okay to fail, but it was never okay to be outworked. When you remember teaching like that from 35 years ago, that's real fuel. And don't be fooled by false fuel sources. The real fuel sources that you can count on are the ones that are around you, those people that are there for you when times are tough, when you need a boost. The third thing that a rocket needs for a successful mission is fire. That's probably the image we think of most when we think of a rocket, the fire blasting from the engine nozzles. That fire is essentially creating the force necessary to propel the rocket through Earth's gravity and into space. You can reach your greatest potential when you find your fire or passion. I'm thankful for my mom and my dad, Brenda and Ronald. They're here today. They graduated from this university as well a long time ago, and they're retired school teachers, and they helped nurture in me a fire or passion from an early age. Some of my earliest memories are Mom and Dad watching the Apollo moon landings with me. Mom would read me books about space before bed, and they threw me a NASA-themed birthday party when I was 5 years old. Dad took me over to see the Space Shuttle Enterprise. It was the first one when it came to Huntsville for the first time when I was in middle school. My parents sparked a fire that has carried me on my journey, and it still does to this day. But you know, fire is both the necessity of spaceflight, but it's also the biggest risk in spaceflight. Fire can lead to disaster. On a cold January day in 1986, I was driving back to campus for my data structures class over here across the street, up the hill in the math building. I'd gone out for a burger for lunch, and just as I returned back to campus, I heard the news on the radio that the Space Shuttle Challenger had exploded as it climbed into the sky. We lost 7 brave astronauts that day. I remember us all sitting in class, wondering what our professor, Dr. Oscar Beck, would do. He came in and he said, "You've all probably heard the news today regarding the space shuttle." And he went on to tell us he had friends at Marshall, friends that worked at Marshall and worked on the space shuttle program, including some former students, and that we should remember all of them because this was going to be a tough day. We wondered if he would cancel class, but I remember him saying that the best way we could honor their loss was to spend the next 90 minutes learning and working to get better. He was basically modeling what NASA and the country would do in response to that tragedy. Don't quit, learn from our mistakes, and go back to work. Dr. Beck taught us about a lot more than data structures that day, and I'll never forget it. What the crew of the Challenger knew was that our greatest experiences and accomplishments come when we are willing to take risk. If we wanted to completely eliminate the risk of spaceflight, we'd never light the rocket. We'd be safe, but we wouldn't go anywhere. And that's the way life works too. Find your passion, be willing to take a risk to fulfill it, and when you fail, learn from it and move on. A rocket also needs a guidance and navigation system in order to keep it on track and adjust course when necessary. Make no mistake, this may or may not be the end of your formal education, but you guys are going to need to keep learning your entire life. Be curious and remain agile. Most every field is being disrupted and impacted by technology and societal changes. You need to be open to new ideas, new approaches, and new information. You need to be able to take those things that you learn, feed them into your flight computer, adjust course, and continue on your journey. And all along the way, I think it's critical to have a guide to believe in and follow that's bigger than yourself, something bigger than you. For me, it's a faith that we all have a final destination that's not attainable through human effort, but only through the grace of God. And finally, a rocket needs a destination or a purpose. And you're going to need one too. Last week, I had the incredible honor of spending the better part of a day with Dr. Harrison Schmitt. He's 82 years old, and he's the last living man to have walked on the moon as part of Apollo 17. He was at Marshall to celebrate the 45th anniversary of Apollo 17, and I got a chance to spend some time with him. And we talked about the legacy of the Apollo program and how it is such a perfect example of what humans can do when we are all unified and committed to a clear purpose, even when that destination seems impossible. You know, there are lots of good reasons to explore space. There are scientific benefits, defense benefits, and economic benefits, and those are all important. But I think the greatest benefit might be a bit more abstract. I think we explore because it inspires us. At a time when it feels like so much divides us, exploring space, seeing a successful rocket launch, seeing the view of Earth from the space station, or a close-up picture of Pluto reminds us of what we humans can do and who we can be when we're at our best. What does that have to do with you finding your purpose? Right now, in our country, you know, we have a lot that divides us. But this great experiment that we're all part of, a government of the people, by the people, and for the people, it's at risk when we can no longer come together around those things that unify us, the principles of life, liberty, freedom, and service to our fellow man. What's the antidote to this? I don't think it's really in electing the right politician or winning the latest argument or creating new laws or programs. I think it's us, people like you, people like me, finding a greater purpose. Maybe our most important purpose is not about what great heights we can achieve in terms of stature, acclaim, or wealth. Someone will leave here today and become a nurse that spends their career caring for people in dark times of illness. Someone will leave here today and become a teacher. They will dedicate their life, like my mom, my dad, my wife, and Coach Hill, to educating and developing young people. Many of you will find success in business and create wealth and opportunities for others. Some will create art or music that inspires and encourages people. Now, these are the kind of things that bring us together and allows this grand experiment to continue. So maybe, just maybe, it's not about how high or far our rocket travels, but how many other rockets we help lift off the launch pad and along their journey. One final note. Last week when I was talking with Harrison, the Apollo 17 astronaut, I told him I was going to be doing this commencement speech. So I asked the last living person to walk on the moon if he had a message for all of you. He thought for a moment and he replied, "Time is relentless, so tell them to make the most of it." And I said, "Harrison, I think you just gave me the last line in my speech. So congratulations, class of 2017. Good luck and Godspeed on your journey."
Thank Thank you, Mr. Pettus, for those wonderful remarks. It's truly an honor to count you as a member of the